First and foremost, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it, especially on short notice. Uh, um, I want to be mindful of the time of Amanda Nicholson, who is here to answer some of your questions. Amanda, as some of you know, you've interviewed her before. She is our Assistant Provost and Dean of Student Success. And she can talk about the news that we released a little bit earlier today. Understanding that this is obviously a fluid situation too, so there's only so much we can say about the future. But we wanted to make Amanda available to talk about some of the planning that went into this decision and to talk about some of the details here. I have logged the order that you joined the meeting. So what I want to do is call on each of you to ask a question and a follow-up, and give a chance for all of you to get a question in there. So the first entry that we had here was CNY Central. So CNY Central, I'm not sure if Megan is with us or a representative from CNY Central.
I'm trying to unmute it. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. I see you down there. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and ask a question. Is this Megan?
Yes, this is Megan.
Okay, Megan. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and ask a question of Amanda, please do.
What just made you come to this decision, really, Amanda?
Well, thank you, Megan. So this is not truly a personal decision. This was a decision made by a fairly large team of faculty, staff, and with some student input about how we might deliver instruction in the fall that would the best in the best interest of our students and their academic success. So our students like being on campus, and we knew that. So our first question was, can we make that happen? I mean, is that actually feasible to bring people back when you're in a pandemic state where not all questions can be answered yet, right? So we started a few weeks ago, literally like 3 or 4 weeks ago, pulling together a large number of subcommittees working on various areas of this to figure out if this was feasible and what we could do. And with an idea that the ideal would be to open up campus for so many reasons. So we figured out up to today that we believe we can. Now, having said that, we have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 months, like nobody else does. So this is not like we have some special knowledge, but on our best estimates, we believe we can, with some really good safeguards in order to make this happen. So there's literally dozens and dozens of people involved in making this decision. And one of the things that was very important to the decision was, should we start at the same time and end at the same time? And our traditional fall semester for many, many years, and I've been at the university for many, many years, is that we come in August towards the end, usually like the last week, and then we leave at Thanksgiving for a full week, and then we come back for another like week to 2 weeks for a week of instruction, and then some reading days, and then exams. And then everybody leaves around the 15th or 16th of December. That's kind of roughly how it's been for many years. But one of the things we figured out was that because of this pandemic and the possibility, which again, no one knows, that a second wave might hit us as the flu season converges, as we get colder, could we be safer doing this by trying to condense the semester, right? And start in a way that made, how could we get this, a rigorous academic schedule done and maybe get everyone home before Thanksgiving, or right before Thanksgiving, when it is estimated that a potential second wave might hit. So that really guided the decision that was announced today to do this, right? To bring forward our start by a full week.
Megan, if you have a follow-up.
Yeah, I'm just, what is going to be in place then for students? I mean, I know that there's social distancing, that sort of thing. Do you guys have a idea of that?
If I could really
Yes.
preface that before Amanda steps in there, Megan, there's only so much that we can have in terms of exact minute detail. But I'll shut up and let Amanda let Amanda answer as what she can. So.
All right.
No, it's a great question, Megan. So we have been working on all our plans on the assumption. We hope this assumption improves. I'm going to tell you that. Obviously, I think we're all hoping things get better, but we're working on the assumption that things are similar to as they are today, where we need to be 6 foot apart and we need to wear masks and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That we can only gather in small groups, that we can't put 200 young people in a lecture hall all together. You know, so we've been working on those assumptions with this plan. So if you like, I hate to say the worst case scenario, but we have not been assuming everything's going to be, rainbows and pussycats by the time we open. We believe that there will still be major restrictions to how we operate to keep our students, our faculty, and our staff safe. So those are the assumptions and restrictions we've been working under. So social distancing, which has changed how we look at classroom scheduling and how many people we can put in a class, and expanding the week to accommodate more sections of classes, et cetera, in order to accommodate an on-campus experience, but safely.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Chris Carlson, I've got you up next.
Hey, Amanda, thank you for taking the time. Obviously, we're learning more about the virus kind of each day. The information maybe becomes a little bit better and our understanding becomes a little bit better. Why did you guys kind of feel like it was important to make the decision now versus, waiting a little bit longer until things maybe become a little bit clearer?
That's a great question, Chris. And I wish I was smart enough to have a really great answer. I think there's several things that impacted our decision, right? One is that our incoming class and their parents and our returning students and their parents and everybody else are very anxious to get some kind of resolution around what the future holds for them. Do you know what I mean? It's a very scary time. So the incoming class, their entire spring has been upended. We don't have a senior coming to us from high school who had a prom, who's probably going to have a graduation. I don't know if any of you are in this boat with your own children or friends, but this has been a kind of rough time for them, right? And meanwhile, back in December, they applied for college and they were all excited in January when they got accepted to wherever, and a lot of them to our school, which we're very thankful for. And then suddenly, poof, the whole thing, the whole of their worlds, like all of our worlds, started to change dramatically. So I think we felt we needed to start looking a few weeks ago, as I mentioned, would we be able to pull this off? I mean, there were 2 ways you can go. We're going to try for an on-campus semester, or we're going to say, no, we're just going online, right? We went online because we had to in March. There was no option whatsoever. And this university managed to turn around getting online in about 10 days. I'm not saying it was perfect, but with 10 days prep, I would say modestly it wasn't bad, considering what we had to do quickly, right? So we have a little bit more time now. So it was like, if we had the time and we have the will, and we believe this is what our students want, because they've told us that's what they want. They want to come back. They want college. They don't want online. Can we manage to make this happen? So that's what we've been working really, really hard to try and figure out. And we truly believe we can. Now, other things could change, and we are certainly not privy to special information about the future that no other school has. But I think a lot of peer schools have been doing the same things and have tried to figure out how to do this. Will it be exactly the same as any other fall semester? No, I doubt it. But Will we try and have a really good experience for our young people as they come back? Yes, we're going to do everything we can to make it the best it can possibly be, and to keep that whole college experience alive for them.
And obviously, one thing we've all learned a little bit about this is how difficult it is to model and predict the future. Whose models are you guys going by, or which health officials are you guys using to inform your decision the best that you can?
That's a great question. Well, that's a great question. We are in regular communication with public health and government officials, and we're following their good guidance, as is everybody. Well, not necessarily everybody. We certainly are. We're looking at what every state is doing. We're looking very closely at what New York State is doing. And that's particularly important because New York is the epicenter of this pandemic for this country, right? So this is a little different from being a school that's set in Oklahoma or something. It's just different, right? We are very fortunate, all of us, to be in Onondaga County, which is relatively safe and has a lot of space and fresh air and has not been desperately affected. Thank the Lord, by the way. And so we have been watching every guideline you can imagine. We are also using our own epidemiologists, our own health center experts, our own faculty experts on public health. We have a school that has a Department of Public Health. So we're looking at all our internal knowledge plus the external government knowledge and county and state knowledge to inform our decisions. We are certainly not doing this without all the information we can gather on a daily basis. So every day we are looking at this. Every day we get a report to look at what's going on, what are the numbers, what are the new recommendations, what are the new developments, what are the new testing procedures, what are the new this, what are the new that, which is, as Keith referred to, which is why, I don't exactly know how we're going to test when we come on. We know we are going to test. We're going to have to test everybody. What that test might be could be different in 2 months from what it is today. And that's the truth. And we hope it will be and be more accurate and all the rest of it. So, but we are not for 1 minute pretending we know everything. We are for every minute looking at this in a very broad way and trying to gather as much information as possible all the time to make really good informed decisions and realize that they're evolving decisions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Josh Martin, I've got you up next if you're with us here, Josh.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Perfect. Just to clarify, you plan on testing every student when they return?
Yes, we will.
And
That's the plan. Don't ask me what test. I'm not totally sure. Part of our plan will be to test every single student when they return.
and how much did other universities and colleges releasing their plans for the fall have an impact at all on your plan releasing today? We saw Notre Dame had one earlier, I think last week or earlier this week, as well as South Carolina. Did any other universities unveiling their plans have any influence on what you guys decided to do?
I think to some extent we always spend time looking at our own peer schools. We are a member of a group that we look at all the time, and everyone talks to each other, which, you know, they talk about research, they talk about teaching, they talk about everything. So we've been watching all the schools that are similar to find out what they're doing. But our decision had to be based on who we are and where we are and all the rest of it. NYU actually announced this morning that they're opening their campus. So I think our chancellor was quite bold in stepping out there a few weeks ago and saying, I want to open up this campus, let me know if it's possible. And making this challenge to faculty, staff, and all of us to try and figure it out. And then, you know, basically we came back and said, yes, we think it is, based on what we know. But here are some of the guidelines for how we'd have to do it. So far we have a couple of very long reports discussing what we need to do, which, as I mentioned, could change in terms of how we do some of the things. But I think we've identified those areas we need to be carefully watching. Things just like you said, like what will be the most efficient way and effective way to test when we get to August, right? And what will be the most efficient and effective way to socially distance, and what will that look like when you have several thousand people on a relatively small campus, you know, for several thousand people. And how do we manage that? How do we get them into dining situations and out? How do we make sure they're safe in their residence? Or how frequently do we have to check? One thing that's positive is that we're dealing in our student body, at least, with relatively young people who are relatively, immune is the wrong word, but relatively lowly impacted by this virus, right? 18 to 22-year-olds are not in a high risk category. However, having said that, some of our faculty are in a very high risk category. Some of our staff are as well. And we are very, very cognizant of the community we live in. And we are part of a community. We're part of the Syracuse community. And we want to make sure that we're not impacting them in a negative way either. So we are erring on the side of caution in all things at this point.
Kind of led into my follow-up, bro. Sorry, Keith. Can I get one more?
Actually, Josh, can we?
I'll skip it.
I'm
You're good.
sorry.
You're
Send me an email though if you've got a specific question. I'll see what I can answer. I appreciate it, and I'll also send you the video file too if you need it. I've got all the since the beginning. Ricky Sayer, I've got you up next, Ricky.
First, thank you for doing this. I have some clarifying questions. We've been talking with students virtually, of course, and the biggest question we've gotten has to do with these classes happening additionally on Friday and on weekends. Students want to know, are these classes being moved? What happens to students who simply can't have classes on weekends for work or whatever else? How drastic is this change when it comes to moving or additional classes on Fridays and weekends?
Well, first of all, we do actually have several colleges. The one I used to teach at was Whitman. We always had classes on Friday. So it's not every college that doesn't have classes on Friday. And I know some of us who are as old as I am remember classes on Friday being pretty standard. So we need to expand classes on Friday, and let me explain why. If you have 30 students, let's say, in a class right now, and that classroom fits 30 students, they may only be able to fit 10 students in that classroom, right? And socially distance them. So we need to have more sections to make that possible. So we're going to have to expand our week to make that possible. And we want to tell our students that's what we're going to do. You know, that is part of what we need to do to make sure everybody gets the kind of academic, rigorous education they need. And if they're coming back, most students have clearly indicated they want to have, wherever possible, and it won't be always possible, but wherever possible, they want to have face-to-face instruction because that's what they're on campus for. So the expansion of these classes into Fridays and weekends is certainly not a punitive thing for the students. It's actually so that we can actually deliver the sort of instruction that they really want. So you know, is it ideal? No, but I think we have to be honest. It is not business as usual when you're in a global pandemic, right? It is just not business as usual. So we have to make something work in a very difficult time. And the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'm off for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday schedule is just not going to be a thing. Not this fall. I'm not sure if it will go back to that ever, but we can't make that work.
So So students are just going to have to make the changes. If they can't have a class on the weekend, they're just going to have to adjust their schedule. And
I think they will. And I think just to reassure you a little bit here, Ricky, that there's going to be almost everything will be up online as well or live streamed, right? So if there are reasons why you just cannot make it, right, you will still have access to information. We're not trying to like make people's lives incredibly difficult here. We are trying to make the instruction as accessible as we can to as many people as we can in the safest way we can. And there's no way we can do that in the same structure that we've done in the past. There's just no way.
And that's for any reason.
this is why we had to expand, if that makes sense.
And that's for any reason. You don't need to have a specific health notice or something like that.
I have no idea. We're not down to that level of detail yet, but we will have everything online as well as in person.
Thanks, Ricky. Myra, I've got you up next.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
Of course.
So my question for you is that one of the biggest concerns for most students in returning to campus in the fall is living in dorm rooms with communal bathrooms. And how do you plan to create a safe environment and a sanitary environment with communal bathrooms and with living in such close quarters?
Great question, Mara. Well, we've been looking at that. There's actually a whole subcommittee working on that, on the sort of infrastructure and residence life piece, because it's really important. So at any one time, we have about 50% of our undergraduate students in what we call on-campus housing, which is our housing, right? Our residence halls. And the other 50% off campus, whether Euclid or, campus apartments around us, right? For our on-campus, we're looking at some of the guidelines that have come from Connecticut and other states, where they're looking at the residence halls as sort of family units, which makes this possible. So the family unit idea is that, your likelihood of contracting this disease is it's not so much from your roommate, by the way. That's not really where it is. It's from traveling out and getting it from somebody else. So if we test our students in the residence halls and make sure that they are not carrying the disease as they move in, and we regularly test them, okay, they are considered almost like a family unit, like when you live with your family in your own home, right? So if you go and sit in your front porch, for a cup of coffee in the morning, that's not dangerous because you're with people that you know do not have the disease, right? And if you're regularly tested, even if you're in a bigger community, that's relatively safe, and other schools are following that model. Now, things we have to do, though, in order to make that work is what we're looking at now, which is up our game in terms of health risks through poor sanitation. So we have to bathroom cleaning, notices, hand washing, mask wearing, all these kinds of things are in play right now. How do we do that all the time so that we are making sure these students are taking care of themselves to take care of their colleagues in the halls? I don't have, again, the detail on all of this, but there's a lot of work going on what would be effective ways of doing that.
So with these guidelines in place, with treating each residence hall as like a family unit, how will that work also with like dining halls with self-serve buffets? And then how would that also work with like if students need to leave campus for the weekend?
Great questions, Mara. Gosh, I need you on one of my committees, okay? Right, so dining halls is another challenge. So dining halls, like classrooms, we have to socially distance, right? So how are we going to do that? So we're talking about how we put dividers in dining rooms, in libraries, on the quad, whatever, to keep people socially distanced. When we got into the first stages of the pandemic, just before we called everybody and said, you can't come back, we had already started serving food in some of our dining halls with partitions down so that the students don't actually reach in and pick up their own food. There's a partition, and then I'm on one side and you tell me what you would like. I serve it for you and pass it under, right? And I have gloves on, so we have a distancing thing. We had figured this out on three dining halls on campus, and it worked really well because we did not know how infectious everything was, and we were in the early stages of COVID coming to America, and we were trying to be very, very careful, particularly during spring break when we still had students with us before we'd said we can't keep doing this. So we kind of tested out some things in the dining halls that we believe are going to work well, and that's going to be an issue. So we're also looking at how we space, how we look at other areas that students can eat in, how we have pre-made meals that people can pick up and just walk into a dining hall and know what they are on their phone perhaps, and walk in and go like, I'm having number 2 on the list, right? And it's all done, and you pick it up and you can go somewhere else and eat it, preferably in the early fall, somewhere outside. What other areas and spaces we can make available on campus that are not currently dining halls or not currently social spaces where people can eat and meet safely and socially, but at a distance. So I'm not going to tell you we've got it all worked out yet, but that's exactly what we're working on now. How can we do this? We do not want people locked in their rooms like prisoners, right? I mean, this, you know, but at the same time, we want to make sure it's safe. So it's a balance between safety and this idea of having a social and rewarding college experience.
Thanks, Myra. Dan, I've got you as our final question here.
Hey, Amanda, thank you for your time. Just wanted to ask a question about what will the move-in process look like? I spoke with Binghamton University's president earlier today, and he says they're having students come in a week earlier, and they're going to come in small groups. And, you know, usually, you know, families help students move in. All this luggage is going to be transported into dormitories. What's the move-in process going to look like?
Well, we're working on that right now, and we have one of the team members who does this is a fabulous young woman. Anyway, so some of the things we're looking at, let me explain. One would be ship to us whatever you can, or drop it off several weeks ahead, and we'll get it into your room ahead of time. So for all of you, and I know you all did, who went to college, here was the deal, right? You arrived with a laden car at some point with multiple family members, and you got your number, and you stood in a line in your car, and you waited to get to the top, and then you took out 1,200 boxes, and you know there was a sort of chain gang, like a water gang on a fire, moving these boxes into your room, right? And actually, move-in at SU has always been kind of one of the things we do really well. However, in the days of COVID-19, that system is not going to work. Too many people, too close to each other, right? And residence halls with relatively small halls, all rushing past each other. So some of the general guidelines we're looking at now is one, asking people, we're going to be asking people wherever to ship ahead of time so we can put those things in your room, or you can come up and get them in the room if we stage those deliveries, right? We have a lot of students who come to us within a 4 to 5 hour drive, and we believe they would be probably happy to do that. So maybe they come up early in August, and we put a lot of their stuff in their room ahead of time. Then when you do move in with your student, there are fewer of you moving in at the same time in any one residence hall. We're going to ask people to limit the family members they bring with you. So please don't bring grandma. We love her, but not a good trip, right? Maybe bring one parent if you could, 2 if you have to. Bring the things your clothes, the things you need. Hopefully you've shipped stuff ahead. We'll get you in, just like Binghamton, Dan, we'll stagger, and we'll spend more time with fewer people in the halls, so we don't have, you know, I think we estimated that last year on our busiest day, we had something like 8,000 new people hitting campus within 8 hours. We can't deal with that like that. We're going to have to space that out. So your thoughts about staggering, fewer people, and moving belongings in early so we don't do everything on one day. And then we're going to have to ask our parents to leave, which is going to be sad because they usually spend several days, you know, prettying up the room or getting sheets or running to Target and all the rest of it. That we're probably going to have to curtail, but what we will do is what we're planning to do is give them a lot of notice so they understand how we're going to do this so that they can come up and help get their students settled in and not, I mean, we don't want them to feel they never saw the room that their daughter or son was sleeping in. That's not fair, right? I mean, as a mom, I understand what that would feel like. So they need to see that. but we can't have people hanging around campus because it's too dangerous for 3 or 4 days and have thousands and thousands of parents, which we normally do. And I have to tell you, it's so much fun. But I can't see that happening this year just because I think it's just going to be a health risk. And I think everything we're learning from everything the government's writing up and the state is telling us this. So we need to be smart, we need to be safe, and we need to be very measured in how we move people in. And what we're trying to do with the announcement today and ongoing announcements, which we have a fabulous communications team, we need to tell the families and the students who are coming to us every week, if not twice a week, what the next piece is, because I think information is reassuring and a lack of it is terrifying in days like we're living through now.